The man in the three-piece suit looked like he could end lives with a single word, and right now, he was breaking. Enzo Lucciano, the Iron Dawn, the man who controlled half the West Coast underworld, sat rigid in his private train booth, a 2-month-old infant screaming against his chest. His slicked-back dark hair and full beard gave him the appearance of a 1940s gangster, all sharp edges and old-world danger. The olive-toned vest and matching suit jacket that usually made him look untouchable now seemed to constrict around him like a prison. His dark eyes, usually cold as winter steel, held something he'd sworn never to show again. Pure, unfiltered desperation. "Please," he whispered to the child, his voice cracking. "Please, Marcello, please." But his son didn't care that his father had built an empire on fear. Didn't care that grown men crossed streets to avoid his shadow. Marcello only knew hunger and pain, and the devastating absence of the mother whose heartbeat had stopped 2 months ago, bringing him into this world. Enzo had tried everything: bottles, pacifiers, rocking motions that felt wrong in arms more used to holding guns than babies. Nothing worked. His son was starving, and he was powerless to stop it. 4 seats back, Tracey Watkins heard those cries and felt her body betray her. Her breasts ached, milk flooding through her in response to an infant she had no right to feel connected to. She pressed her hand against her white-collared shirt, trying to stop the physical pain that always came with the emotional one. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun, professional and composed, everything she didn't feel inside. 4 months. 4 months since she'd held her daughter Lily. 4 months since she'd found her baby cold in the crib. Her tiny heart simply stopped. No warning. No goodbye. Just gone. The crying grew more desperate, and Tracey felt tears slip down her cheeks. She knew that sound. That raw, primal wail of a baby searching for something only a mother could give. Before she could think, before she could stop herself, she was moving. "Sir," she said quietly, standing beside his booth. Her voice trembled. "I'm a neonatal nurse. I think I can help." Enzo's head snapped up, and she nearly stepped back from the intensity in his eyes. This close, she could see the grief etched into every line of his face. The expensive tailored suit, the vintage aesthetic that spoke of old money and older traditions, the danger radiating off him like heat, the utterly broken expression of a father watching his child suffer. "I've tried everything," he said hoarsely. "I know," Tracey's voice broke, "but he's not hungry for formula. He's hungry for what his mother would have given him." Understanding flashed across Enzo's face, followed by disbelief. "I lost my daughter 4 months ago," Tracey whispered, fresh tears spilling over. "My body still thinks. I'm still producing. If you'd let me, if you'd trust me, I could try to feed him." The train car went completely silent. Enzo Lucciano stared at this trembling woman in her crisp white shirt with her dark hair pulled back like she was heading to a job interview instead of offering him a miracle. In his world, there were no miracles. No mercy. No strangers who helped without wanting something in return. But Marcello screamed again, and something inside him shattered. "The private cabin," he said, his voice raw. "Now." Tracey just offered a piece of herself she was saving for the daughter she lost. If that didn't wreck you, I don't know what will. Subscribe for more stories that understand grief, love, and healing aren't simple. They're messy, and beautiful and devastating all at once. Now let's continue. The black SUV that picked them up wasn't a car, it was a fortress on wheels. Tracey sat in the back seat, Marcello asleep in her arms, trying not to stare at the 2 men in front. Both wore dark suits. Both had the kind of stillness that came from years of violence. Neither had spoken since Enzo placed her inside. Enzo sat beside her, making 3 phone calls in rapid Italian that sounded like commands. When he finally pocketed his phone, he turned to her. "When we arrive, there will be questions from my people. About who you are and why you're here. What should I tell them? The truth. That you're saving my son's life. That makes you untouchable." The SUV turned onto a private road. The Lucciano estate emerged from the hills like something from another era. Stone walls. Iron gates that opened silently. Manicured gardens, stretching toward a villa that looked more like a Tuscan fortress than a California home. Armed men stood at every entrance. Tracey's breath caught as the gates closed behind them with a heavy clang that sounded like a cell door locking. This wasn't a home. This was a compound. The SUV stopped. Enzo stepped out first, then offered his hand. The moment her feet touched the ground, she felt eyes on her from every direction. "Boss." A man in his 50s approached, silver hair slicked back. His eyes moved from Enzo to Tracey to the baby. "We weren't expecting guests. This is Tracey Watkins," Enzo said, his voice carrying authority. "She's staying in the East Wing. No one enters her rooms without my permission. No one questions her. Are we clear, Vincent?" Vincent's expression remained neutral. Crystal clear. Boss. Inside, the villa was breathtaking. Marble floors, vaulted ceilings, art worth fortunes. But beneath the luxury, Tracey felt the tension, the way staff stopped and stared. Enzo led her upstairs down a hallway, lined with portraits of stern-faced men who all shared his dark eyes. Family, legacy, history, written in bloodlines. He stopped at a heavy wooden door and pushed it open. The suite was larger than Tracey's entire apartment. A 4-poster bed, floor-to-ceiling windows, and through an adjoining door, a nursery with everything a baby could need. "This is yours," Enzo said, "for as long as you're here." Marcello stirred, beginning to fuss. Without thinking, Tracey moved to the armchair and settled in to feed him. Enzo watched from the doorway, something unreadable in his expression. "There are cameras throughout the estate," he said quietly, "but not in this room. You have complete privacy. The door locks from the inside. If you need anything, press the button on the nightstand. And if I want to leave?" His expression darkened. "The gates don't open without my authorization." The words hung in the air like a threat. Tracey looked down at Marcello and felt the weight of her decision settle like a stone. 3 days, she whispered. 3 days, Enzo agreed, but they both knew it was already a lie. From somewhere in the house, a phone rang. Enzo's jaw tightened as he glanced at the screen. His expression turned to ice. "I need to take this." He stepped toward the door, then paused. "Lock the door behind me, Tracey, and don't open it for anyone but me." Then he was gone, and Tracey was alone in a gilded cage with a baby that wasn't hers, and a door that locked from the inside but couldn't protect her from what waited beyond these walls. She looked out the window at the armed guards patrolling the gardens, and realized with crystalline clarity that she hadn't been invited here. She'd been captured. Tracey woke to Marcello's cries at 2 a.m, her body responding before her mind surfaced from sleep. 3 days had passed since she'd arrived. 3 days where she'd fallen into a rhythm she both craved and feared. The gilded cage had become familiar, and that terrified her more than the guards or the locked gates. She lifted the baby from the bassinet, settling into the routine. Marcello latched immediately, his tiny fists kneading against her. "You're getting stronger," she whispered, running her finger along his soft cheek. "Aren't you, little one?" It was true. The change in Marcello was remarkable. His skin had gone from pale to healthy pink. His cries were stronger, more demanding than desperate. He'd gained weight, she could feel it. Under her care, the Lucciano heir was thriving, and that terrified her. A soft knock at the door made her tense. "It's me," Enzo's voice came through, rough with exhaustion. "Come in." He entered quietly, still in his vest and shirt from earlier, though he'd loosened his collar. His slicked-back hair had fallen slightly forward. "I saw the light," he said, moving to the window. He never looked directly when she was feeding Marcello. "Is he eating well?" Every 2 hours, like clockwork, Tracey adjusted the baby. "He's gained almost a pound since we arrived. His color is better. His muscle tone is improving." Dr. Castellano said the same. Enzo's reflection showed relief mixed with something darker. He said Marcello was on the edge of failure to thrive. That another week and we might have lost him. "But you didn't lose him," Tracey said softly. "He's going to be fine. Because of you." Enzo turned to face her. "My son is alive because you walked into my life on that train." Tracey looked down at Marcello, now drowsy and content. Her heart ached with confusing emotions. Pride, fear, dangerous, growing attachment. "The 3 days are up tomorrow," she said quietly. Enzo's jaw clenched. "I know. I should go back to San Francisco, to my life." "What happens when you leave?" Enzo's voice cut like a blade. "What happens to Marcello when the only person he'll eat for walks out that door?" Tracey's throat tightened. She'd been trying not to think about it. "We could try the bottle again," she offered weakly. "We tried this morning." Enzo's expression turned bitter. He screamed for 40 minutes, wouldn't take a drop. "The moment Maria brought him to you, he calmed and ate. That doesn't mean... It means exactly what we both know." Enzo moved closer. "My son has bonded to you. His body recognizes you as his mother. If you leave, he'll starve himself again." "That's not fair," Tracey whispered, tears burning. "You can't put that on me. I'm not his mother. I can't abandon my life because—" "What life?" The question was brutal. "You told me yourself you can't go back to the NICU, that you haven't worked since your daughter died, that you spend your days trying to figure out how to keep breathing." Tracey flinched. "Because it was true. At least I'm free," she said, but the words sounded hollow. Marcello had fallen asleep at her breast, milk-drunk and peaceful. She looked down at him, at his impossibly long lashes, and the way his little hand curled around her finger. He looked like he belonged there. "I'll double whatever salary you were making," Enzo said quietly. "You'll have this suite, complete privacy. All I'm asking is that you stay until we can transition him to formula. Another month. Maybe 2. "And if he won't transition?" Tracey looked up. "What then? I stay here forever." "You're not trapped." "Really? Then tell your guards to open those gates right now." Enzo's silence was answer enough. "That's what I thought." Tracey's voice broke. "You need me, so I'm not allowed to leave. That's captivity dressed in silk sheets." "It's survival," Enzo said rawly. "For my son, I'm not asking you to understand my world. I'm asking you to save his life." Again. Marcello sighed in his sleep, unaware of the decision being made above his head. 1 month, Tracey finally said. "I'll stay 1 month. After that we find another solution." Enzo's exhale was shaky. 1 month. You have my word. But as he left, Tracey knew the truth. She wasn't leaving in a month. She might not be leaving at all. Tracey found Enzo in the nursery at 3 in the afternoon, sitting in the rocking chair with Marcello asleep on his chest. He hadn't heard her approach. His eyes were closed, one large hand spanning the baby's entire back, the other cradling his son's head with impossible gentleness. She noticed his sleeves rolled up, revealing intricate tattoos covering his forearms. Not crude prison ink, but beautiful art. A rose with thorns, script in Italian. And on his inner wrist, a date. The day Marcello was born. The day his wife died. "You can come in," Enzo said without opening his eyes. "I know you're there." Tracey stepped into the sunlight-filled room. "I didn't mean to interrupt." "You're not." He opened his eyes, and she was struck by how different he looked. Unguarded, almost peaceful. He just fell asleep. "I thought I'd hold him a while longer." "He likes being close to you," Tracey said softly, settling into the chair across from him. "He knows your heartbeat. Isabella used to say that." Enzo's voice roughened. "That babies remember the sound of safety." It was the first time he'd spoken her name aloud. The intimacy hung in the air. "What was she like?" Tracey asked gently. Enzo was quiet, his thumb tracing circles on Marcello's back. "Fire," he finally said. "She was fire and I was gasoline. Everyone said we'd burn each other out, but we just burned brighter." His jaw clenched. "Until the pregnancy. Complications from the beginning. The doctors said she shouldn't carry to term, that it was too dangerous. But she refused. Said this baby was worth dying for." "And she did," Tracey whispered. "She did." The words were broken glass. Hemorrhage during delivery. They saved Marcello, but they couldn't save her. "I held my son for the first time, while my wife bled out 3 feet away." Tracey's eyes burned. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry for me. Be sorry for him." Enzo looked at his sleeping son. "He'll never know how fierce she was, how she laughed, how she wasn't afraid of anything, not even me. He'll never know his mother loved him enough to die for him." The silence was heavy with shared grief. "What about you?" Enzo asked, meeting her eyes. "You've been here almost a week, and I know nothing about your daughter except that you lost her." Tracey's breath caught. She'd been avoiding this conversation. "Her name was Lily," she said, her voice trembling. "She had these perfect little dimples when she smiled. And she smiled all the time, like the whole world was magical." "How old?" 4 months old. Tracey wiped at her eyes. "I put her down for a nap. Just a normal Tuesday afternoon. And when I checked on her 2 hours later, she was just gone. Cold. Silent. Like someone had flipped a switch and turned off all the light in the world." Enzo's expression turned to stone, but she saw the emotion beneath. "SIDS? That's what they called it. A fancy medical term for, we have no idea why your baby died." Her voice broke. No warning, no goodbye. She was just alive and then she wasn't. and I've spent every day since trying to figure out what I did wrong." "You didn't do anything wrong." "How do you know?" Tracey demanded, anger flooding through grief. "I'm a neonatal nurse. I'm supposed to know when babies are in distress, but I didn't see it. I didn't save her. Because some things can't be saved," Enzo said with brutal honesty. "Some things are taken from us no matter how hard we fight." They sat in silence, two broken people bound by loss, and the small life sleeping between them. "Is that why you offered to help?" Enzo finally asked. "Because you couldn't save your daughter, so you're trying to save my son?" Tracey considered lying, but Enzo deserved the truth. "Yes," she whispered. "When I heard Marcello crying, my body responded like Lily was still alive, like I could still be her mother. And when I held him," she looked at her hands. "For the first time since she died, I felt like maybe I wasn't completely broken." "You're not broken," Enzo said fiercely. "You're the strongest person I've ever met." Marcello stirred, beginning to wake, his little face scrunched. "He's hungry," Tracey said, standing. "Wait." Enzo stood too, close enough that she could smell his cologne. He held out Marcello, and when she took the baby, their hands touched. The contact sent electricity through her. "Thank you," Enzo said quietly, "for telling me about Lily, for trusting me with that." Tracey looked up at this dangerous man with grief in his eyes and felt something shift inside her chest. Something terrifying. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. Tracey found the letter slipped under her door the next morning. The handwriting was bold and precise, written in black ink on heavy cardstock. "I know I promised you could leave after a month. I know I have no right to ask for more, but give me 3 days to prove that staying here could be more than captivity, that it could be a life worth living. If after 3 days you still want to leave, I'll open the gates. No guilt, no manipulation, just freedom. But please, Tracey, give me 3 days. E." She read it twice, her heart pounding. Then she looked at Marcello sleeping peacefully in morning sunlight and knew her answer. She was already lost. The first day, Enzo took her to the garden. Not the manicured front gardens with armed guards, but a hidden courtyard behind the east wing. Olive trees provided shade over a stone fountain. Herbs grew in terracotta pots. A wooden bench sat beneath a pergola draped with climbing roses. "Isabella planted this," Enzo said, leading her through with Marcello asleep in a carrier against his chest. "She said every fortress needed a secret place where beauty could exist without armor." They sat together, the afternoon stretching golden around them. Enzo told her stories about his wife, how they'd met, how she'd made him laugh, how she'd dragged him to this courtyard and forced him to help plant every herb. "I killed most of them," he admitted with a rare smile. "I'm better at ending things than growing them." "You're growing a son," Tracey said softly. The look he gave her was so full of raw gratitude she had to look away. The second day, he cooked for her. Tracey came down at sunset to find the staff dismissed and Enzo at the stove in his vest and rolled-up sleeves, his tattooed forearms dusted with flour. "You cook?" she asked, surprised. "My grandmother insisted every Lucciano man know how to feed himself." He gestured to the ingredients. "I'm making pasta. Real pasta, not that boxed garbage Americans call Italian food." She laughed, actually laughed for the first time since arriving. He taught her how to make the dough, his hands covering hers as he showed her the rhythm. The kitchen filled with garlic and tomatoes. Wine appeared rich and red. They ate at the small corner table, Marcello sleeping beside them. Enzo told her about growing up in Sicily, about his grandmother's kitchen, about the life before violence became his inheritance. "Do you ever wish you could go back?" Tracey asked. "Every day," he said, his dark eyes holding hers. "But then Marcello wouldn't exist, and neither would this moment. So maybe some paths, no matter how dark, lead us exactly where we need to be." The third day, he showed her his truth. "I need you to see something," Enzo said after breakfast. He led her to his private study, a room she'd never entered. Dark wood, leather books, a massive desk. But it was the wall behind the desk that made her breath catch. Photographs, dozens of them. Isabella pregnant and glowing. Isabella holding newborn Marcello. Isabella's funeral. And in the center, a portrait, a beautiful woman with fire in her eyes. "I come here every night," Enzo said quietly. "I tell her about Marcello. About you. That I'm failing at being a single father. That I'm terrified every moment. That the only reason he's thriving is because a stranger showed me more mercy than I deserve. Enzo. Let me finish. He moved closer. I brought you here under false pretenses. I trapped you with guilt. I've kept you here because I'm selfish and desperate and I can't lose another person. He stopped, jaw clenching. The unfinished sentence hung like a confession. You want the truth, Enzo continued. It's not just about Marcello anymore. You make this house feel less like a tomb. You make me remember what it's like to be human. What are you saying? I'm saying stay. He reached out, cupping her face with devastating gentleness. Not because you're trapped, but because I'm asking you to choose this. Choose us. Choose the possibility that broken people can build something beautiful. She should pull away, should remind him of all the reasons this was impossible. But his thumb was tracing her cheekbone, and his eyes were dark with want and vulnerability. 3 days, she whispered. 3 days, he agreed. And then he kissed her. It was soft at first, tentative, asking permission, but when she didn't pull away, when her hand gripped his vest and pulled him closer, the kiss deepened into something that felt like drowning and salvation. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Enzo pressed his forehead to hers. Stay, he whispered again. And God help her. Tracey knew she would. Not for 3 days. Forever. The explosion hit at midnight, rattling the windows hard enough to wake Marcello. Tracey bolted upright, heart pounding, the baby's cries mixing with distant alarms. Before she could process what was happening, her door burst open. Enzo stood there, no jacket, vest unbuttoned, gun in hand. His face was controlled fury. Get Marcello, he commanded. Now. She didn't hesitate. She scooped the screaming baby from his bassinet. What's happening? The docks. They hit one of our shipments. Enzo scanned the grounds through the window. It's a distraction. A distraction from what? He turned, and the look in his eyes made her blood run cold. From you. Vincent appeared in the doorway, blood streaming from a cut above his eyebrow. Boss, movement on the south perimeter. At least 6 vehicles. They're coming for the house. How many men do we have? 12 on site. Reinforcements are 20 minutes out. We don't have 20 minutes. Enzo gripped Tracey's shoulders. There's a safe room in the basement. Vincent will take you. You lock the door and don't open it for anyone but me. Enzo, what's... The Vardanians. His voice was ice and rage. They know about you. They know what you mean to Marcello, and they're coming to take you both. Gunfire erupted outside. Close. Too close. Go, Enzo ordered, pulling her toward the door. Now. They ran through the hallway, Marcello screaming. More gunfire, shattering glass. Vincent led them down the staircase, gun drawn. They'd almost reached the basement door when the front entrance exploded inward. The blast threw Tracey against the wall. She curled around Marcello, protecting him. Her ears rang. Through the smoke, she saw them men in tactical gear pouring through. Professional, coordinated, ruthless. Vincent opened fire, dropping 2 before a bullet caught his shoulder. He stumbled, still trying to shield Tracey. Get her to the safe room, he roared. Antonio, one of the guards, grabbed her arms and half-dragged her toward the basement stairs. They made it 3 steps before Antonio's head snapped back, blood spraying. He crumpled. A man grabbed Tracey from behind. Not one of Enzo's men. Someone else. His grip was iron, his accent Eastern European. The Sacred Mother, he said into a radio. We have her. Tracey fought, kicking and clawing, desperately protecting Marcello. The baby's screams reached a fever pitch. Then Enzo was there. He moved through the smoke like death incarnate, his gun speaking in sharp bursts. 3 men dropped. The man holding Tracey released her with a choked gasp, blood blooming across his chest. Enzo caught her before she fell. The garage, he shouted over the chaos. We're leaving. They ran through service corridors, the sounds of battle echoing. More of Enzo's men appeared, forming a protective wall. But Tracey could hear it. They were outnumbered, outgunned. They burst into the garage where 3 vehicles waited, engines running. Enzo shoved her into an armored SUV and climbed in after. Drive, he commanded. Don't stop for anything. The SUV roared to life, smashing through the garage door. Tracey caught a glimpse of the estate, windows shattered, fires burning, bodies scattered. Then bullets started hitting the vehicle. She ducked low, curling over Marcello. Enzo covered them both with his body. Stay down, he ordered. Just stay down." The SUV swerved violently. More gunfire, metal crunching. Then they were on the open road, the estate shrinking behind them. Tracey finally lifted her head, looking at Enzo. Blood streaked his face from a cut near his temple. His shirt was torn. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, checking her desperately. "Did they?" "I'm fine." "We're fine." She looked down at Marcello, still screaming but unharmed. "But your house, your men." "I know." His jaw was granite. "The Vardanians just declared war. Why do they want me?" "You're the only thing keeping my son alive," Enzo said, his hand cupping her face with devastating tenderness. "Which means you're the only thing keeping me human. In my world, that makes you the most valuable target there is." The weight crashed down on her. She wasn't just a nurse, she was a weapon, a vulnerability. "Where are we going?" she whispered. Enzo's expression turned dark with promise. "Somewhere they'll never find you. And then I'm going to make them pay for every second of fear they put in your eyes." The safe house was a fortified penthouse in downtown San Francisco. Steel doors, bulletproof windows, enough weapons to start a small war. After the Sausalito estate fell, Enzo had evacuated them here, one of 3 backup locations he maintained. It was meant to be impenetrable. It wasn't. Tracey sat in the darkened living room, Marcello finally asleep after hours of screaming. Enzo paced like a caged animal, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian that sounded like threats and orders. They'd been here for 6 hours. 6 hours of waiting for the next attack. "The estate?" Tracey asked when he finally ended the call. "Destroyed." Enzo's voice was flat. "They burned it. Everything Isabella built. Everything." He stopped, jaw clenching. 3 men dead, 2 missing. Vincent made it through surgery, but he's in no condition to fight. "I'm so sorry." "Don't." He turned, eyes blazing. "Don't apologize for something that's not your fault. This is on the Vardanians." Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his face went ashen. "What?" Tracey demanded. "They know we're here." Enzo was already moving, grabbing weapons, shouting orders. "We have maybe 5 minutes." The power cut out. Darkness swallowed them. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing everything in red. And in that crimson glow, Tracey heard it, the sound of the steel door being breached. "The passage," Enzo hissed, grabbing her arm. "There's a hidden exit through the maintenance shaft. It leads to the parking garage." He pulled her through a doorway into a narrow corridor. His men were already there, weapons drawn, faces grim. "Boss, they're coming up the stairwell and elevator," one reported. "We can hold them for maybe 2 minutes. That's all I need." Enzo pressed a panel and it swung open, revealing a metal ladder descending into darkness. "Tracey, climb down. Don't stop." She looked at the ladder, then at Marcello. "I can't climb with him. Give him to me." She transferred the baby to Enzo. He secured Marcello against his chest with one arm, his gun in the other, and started down with terrifying efficiency. Tracey followed, hands shaking on the metal rungs. Above, she heard gunfire erupt, screaming, something exploding. They dropped into an underground maintenance tunnel, concrete and pipes and the smell of oil. Enzo handed Marcello back and pulled out his phone as a flashlight. "This way. Stay close." They ran through the tunnel, footsteps echoing. Behind them, more gunfire. They were being followed. "How did they find us so fast?" she gasped. "Someone talked," Enzo said grimly. "Someone inside sold us out." The tunnel opened into the parking garage. 3 SUVs waited, engines running. Enzo's remaining men were already there, forming a protective semicircle. "Get her in the vehicle," Enzo ordered. "Where?" Headlights blazed to life at the garage entrance. 6 vehicles, maybe more, blocking the only exit. "It's a trap," one of Enzo's men breathed. "They knew about the passage." Enzo looked at Tracey, at Marcello, and she saw the calculation happening, the terrible math of impossible choices. "How many men do we have?" 7, boss. They have at least 20. The vehicles disgorged armed men, professional, coordinated, moving with military precision. And walking through the center was a man in an expensive suit, silver-haired and smiling like a shark. "Enzo Lucciano," he called out, his voice carrying with a thick Armenian accent. "The Iron Dawn, reduced to hiding in tunnels like a rat." Arsen Vardanyan, Enzo replied, deadly calm. Still compensating for your inadequacies with excessive manpower, I see. Arsen laughed. Always so proud. Even when you're surrounded. His eyes found Tracey. And there she is. The sacred mother. The woman who's brought the great Lucciano empire to its knees. You don't want her, Enzo said. You want me. Let them go. Take me instead. Oh, I'll take you, Arsen agreed pleasantly. But I'll take her too. You see, when a woman nurses the heir, she becomes untouchable. Family. Which means harming her would make you look weak, impotent, unable to protect your own. Tracey's blood ran cold. They weren't just kidnapping her. They were going to hurt her to destroy Enzo's reputation. Last chance, Arsen called. Surrender now, and I promise the woman and child won't suffer. Much. Enzo turned to his men. When I give the signal, create an opening. Tracey runs for that service door. It leads to the street. You run and don't look back. I'm not leaving you, Tracey whispered. You are. He gripped her shoulders. Because if they take you, everything dies anyway. But if you escape, if you keep Marcello safe, then something of us survives. He kissed her, hard and desperate and final. Then he pulled away, drew his gun, and stepped into the open. You want the Iron Dawn? He shouted. Come and get him. All hell broke loose. Enzo's men opened fire. Enzo laid down cover, his body between her and the enemy. Run! He roared. Tracey ran, clutching Marcello, sprinting for the service door. Behind her, gunfire was deafening. She was 10 feet away when the door burst open. More Vardanyan soldiers. Tracey skidded to a stop, trapped. A hand grabbed her from behind. She spun, but froze when she felt cold metal against her temple. Stop fighting, a voice said. Or I put a bullet in your head and take the baby anyway. Across the garage, Enzo saw her captured, saw the gun to her head. The look on his face was the most terrible thing she'd ever witnessed. Pure devastation. Stop, he roared, his voice cracking. I surrender. The gunfire ceased. Arsen walked forward, smiling. There's the man beneath the monster. How does it feel, Enzo? To finally care about something enough that losing it would destroy you? Enzo dropped his gun, raised his hands. Let them go, he said hoarsely. Please, take me, but let them go. Arsen shook his head. No. I think I'll take all 3 of you, and then we'll see just how much the Iron Dawn is willing to sacrifice for love. Tracey was dragged forward, Marcello screaming. Her eyes locked with Enzo's, and in that moment, she saw everything they'd never have. As they were forced into separate vehicles, Tracey realized the terrible truth. This was never going to end in escape. This was only going to end in blood. They separated her from Marcello immediately. Tracey screamed, fighting against the hands that dragged her away, but it was useless. She caught one last glimpse of her baby before a door slammed between them. The room they locked her in was surprisingly elegant. Persian rugs, leather furniture, a window overlooking the bay. It looked like a corporate office, not a prison. Arsen Vardanyan sat behind the desk, pouring amber liquid into crystal glasses. Please, sit, he said pleasantly. You must be exhausted. Where's Marcello? Tracey's voice shook. If you hurt him? The child is being fed formula by my housekeeper, screaming his head off, but unharmed. I'm not a monster, Miss Watkins. I don't hurt babies. You just threaten them. I threaten their caretakers. There's a difference. Tracey wanted to throw the glass in his face, but she forced herself to breathe. Marcello was alive. That was all that mattered. What do you want? Enzo Lucciano's complete and total surrender. His territory, his operations, his reputation. Everything that makes him the Iron Dawn. I want him to hand over. Publicly. Humiliatingly. He'll never do that. Oh, I think he will. Because the alternative is watching me hurt you. Slowly, creatively, while he listens to every scream. Tracey's stomach turned to ice. You see, Miss Watkins, Enzo made a fatal mistake. He let himself care about something. In our world, that's the same as putting a target on your back. Arsen moved to the window. For 20 years he's been untouchable. No family, no weaknesses. But then his wife died giving him an heir, and suddenly the great Enzo Lucciano became human. And you're going to punish him for that. I'm going to destroy him for that. But I'm giving him a choice. Sign over everything, and I let you and the child go free. Refuse, and I make you suffer until he wishes I'd just killed him. You'll kill him either way. Probably. But at least this way, you and the baby survive." Before Tracey could respond, the door opened. One of Arson's men entered, looking nervous. "Boss, we have a situation." "What kind?" "Luciano's here. Alone, unarmed, says he wants to negotiate." Arson's eyebrows rose. How delightfully stupid. Bring him in. They brought Enzo in 5 minutes later. He looked like he'd walked through hell. Blood dried on his temple. Vest torn. Hands zip-tied. But his eyes burned with intensity that made Tracey's breath catch. "Tracey," he breathed, scanning her desperately. "Did they hurt you?" "I'm fine," she said, voice breaking. "Enzo, what are you doing here?" "What I should have done from the beginning." He turned to Arson. "Let's talk terms." Arson gestured to a chair. "Please." Enzo remained standing. "Here's how this works. You get everything. My territory, my operations, my contacts. Every piece of the Luciano empire. I sign over to you, publicly. Complete surrender. And in exchange? Tracey and Marcello walk out. Tonight. You give them new identities, money, protection. They disappear so completely that no one can ever find them." Tracey's heart stopped. "No. Enzo, no." "And me?" Arson asked. "You can do whatever you want with me." Enzo's voice was flat, empty. "Kill me, torture me. I don't care, as long as they're safe." "Enzo, stop." Tracey surged to her feet. "You can't do this. Marcello needs you. I need you. You need to live," Enzo said, finally looking at her. The love and devastation in his eyes nearly broke her. "And I need to know you're alive. Even if I never see you again. That's enough." "It's not enough. I didn't survive losing my daughter just to lose you too. I didn't fall in love with you just to watch you throw your life away." The words hung in the air, raw and desperate. Enzo's expression cracked. "Tracey." "Touching," Arson interrupted. "Truly, but I'm afraid I have to decline." Enzo's head snapped toward him. "What?" "Your empire isn't worth anything if you're dead. You are the empire. What I want isn't your territory. It's your complete destruction. And the best way to destroy you? Make you watch everything you love burn while you're powerless to stop it." Enzo's face turned to stone. "You gave me your word." "I gave you nothing, but I'll make you a new deal. Sign over your empire, and I'll kill the woman quickly, painlessly. Refuse, and I'll make her suffering last for days." "No!" Tracey screamed. Enzo lunged forward despite his bound hands. Arson's guards grabbed him, forcing him to his knees. "Choose," Arson commanded. "Her quick death or her slow one. Either way, she dies." Enzo looked up at Tracey, his dark eyes swimming with anguish. This was it, the impossible choice. "There's a third option," a voice said from the doorway. Everyone turned. Marco Salvatore stood there, Enzo's second lieutenant, lean and scarred. Behind him stood at least 30 armed men wearing Luciano colors. "Vincent sends his regards from the hospital," Marco said coldly, raising his weapon. "He told me to tell you. The Iron Dawn doesn't negotiate with terrorists. He burns them to the ground." Arson's face went white. "How did you—" "You had a rat in the Luciano organization," Marco said. "We had 3 in yours, including your head of security, who's been feeding us your location for the last 2 hours while you monologued." The room exploded into chaos. Gunfire erupted. Enzo threw himself toward Tracey, covering her despite his bound hands. Glass shattered. Men screamed. And through it all, Tracey held on to Enzo and prayed that somehow, against all odds, they'd survive this together. Because she'd meant what she said. She hadn't fallen in love with him just to lose him. Not today. Not ever. 6 months later, Tracey woke to the sound of birdsong and Marcello's happy babbling from the nursery. She lay still for a moment, breathing in the crisp mountain air that filtered through the open window, still half convinced she'd wake up back in that office, with Arsen Vardanyan's gun pointed at her head. But the warm body beside her was real. The calloused hand resting on her hip was real. The life they'd built in this remote Appalachian cabin was real. Enzo stirred, pulling her closer against his chest. "He's awake," he murmured, voice rough with sleep. "I know." Tracey smiled, turning to face him. 6 months of peace had softened some of the hard edges. His beard was fuller, less precisely groomed. His hair fell loose instead of slicked back. He looked younger, freer, alive. "I'll get him," Enzo said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. She watched him go, still marveling at the sight of the former Iron Don padding barefoot across worn wooden floors in flannel pajama pants. No weapons, no guards, no empire weighing on his shoulders. The world thought they were dead. Marco had orchestrated it perfectly. 3 bodies burned beyond recognition in the Vardanyan compound fire. Dental records altered, death certificates filed. The Lucciano empire had fractured, absorbed by other families. And Enzo, Tracey, and Marcello had simply vanished. They'd driven for 3 days straight, heading east into the mountains where no one from their old lives would think to look. They'd found this cabin isolated, off-grid, surrounded by nothing but forest and sky. And they'd started over. Enzo returned with Marcello, who immediately reached for Tracey with chubby hands. At 8 months old, he was thriving, rolling over, sitting up, laughing at everything his father did. "Someone's hungry," Tracey said, settling him against her to nurse. Enzo made coffee while she fed their son, because that's what Marcello had become. Not just Enzo's heir, not just the baby she'd saved, but truly, completely theirs. They sat on the porch as the sun rose over the mountains, painting the sky gold and pink, Enzo's arm wrapped around her shoulders, Marcello dozing contentedly. "I need to tell you something," Tracey said softly. Enzo tensed slightly. 6 months of peace hadn't erased his instinct for danger. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." She took his hand, guiding it to rest on her stomach. Everything's perfect, actually." It took him a moment. Then his eyes went wide, his hand pressing more firmly against her abdomen. "You're pregnant." Tracey's voice trembled with joy and fear. "About 8 weeks. I took the test yesterday when you drove into town." Enzo's face went through a dozen emotions: shock, terror, wonder, and finally, pure, radiant joy. His hand remained on her stomach like he was protecting something infinitely precious. "Are you sure?" His voice was barely a whisper. "I'm sure." Tracey covered his hand with hers. "I know it's fast. I know we probably should have waited." Enzo kissed her, cutting off her worried rambling. When he pulled back, there were tears in his eyes. "I lost Isabella bringing Marcello into the world," he said hoarsely. "I thought I'd never risk that again, never let myself want this again. Enzo. But with you, I want everything." He cupped her face with both hands. "I want a dozen babies. I want a life so full of noise and chaos and love that I forget what silence and violence feel like. I want to watch you grow round with our child, and not be terrified every second that I'll lose you." "You won't lose me," Tracey promised, her own tears falling. "We survived a war. I think we can handle a pregnancy." Marcello stirred between them, making his little grunting sounds. Enzo looked down at his son, then at Tracey, then at her still flat stomach, where their second child grew. "We should get married," he said suddenly. Tracey laughed. "Is that a proposal?" "It's a statement of fact." Enzo's smile was soft, genuine, an expression she'd never seen in their old life. "I want you to be my wife before this baby comes. I want us to be a real family. We can't exactly get legally married when we're legally dead," Tracey pointed out. "Then we'll do it the old way." Enzo stood, still cradling Marcello, and pulled Tracey to her feet. "Right here, right now. Before God and the mountains, and this baby who's already brought us more joy than I thought possible." And so they did. Standing on the porch as the sun climbed higher, with Marcello as their only witness, Enzo Lucciano and Tracey Watkins spoke vows that no government would recognize and no church would sanctify. But they were real anyway. "I promise to love you," Enzo said, his voice steady despite the tears, "in this life and whatever comes after. I promise to be the man you see when you look at me, not the monster I was, but the father and husband you've helped me become. I promise to love you." Tracey echoed, her hand on her stomach, in grief and in joy, in the life we lost and the life we're building. "I promise to believe in the possibility of healing, even when it seems impossible." They had no rings, no witnesses beyond a baby and the birds, no legal standing whatsoever. But when Enzo kissed her, sealing their vows, Tracey felt more married than any ceremony could make her. "Mrs. Lucciano," Enzo murmured against her lips. "That's not my name anymore," she reminded him with a smile. Remember? We're the Mitchells now. Mrs. Mitchell, then, he grinned. Though in my heart, you'll always be my Tracey, the woman who saved my son, who saved me. We saved each other, Tracey corrected. And as they stood there, a dead Mafia boss, a grieving nurse, and the baby who'd brought them together watching the sun rise over mountains that held no memories of violence or loss, Tracey felt something she hadn't felt since the day she'd found Lily cold in her crib. Hope. Not the desperate, clinging hope of survival, but the solid, steady hope of a future worth living. A future where broken people could heal, where lost souls could find home, where love messy and complicated and born from tragedy could still build something beautiful from the ashes. Marcello gurgled happily in his father's arms, and deep in Tracey's womb, a new life stirred. The Lucciano empire was dead, but the Lucciano family? The Lucciano family was just beginning. If you made it all the way to the end of Enzo and Tracey's story, you're already one of us. You love romance with real stakes. You love broken people finding wholeness. You love when love wins against impossible odds. So why aren't you subscribed yet? Fix that. Hit the button. Your people are waiting.